no doubt the security situation has gotten many Nigerians concerns which varies in terms of what should be done and perhaps sometimes the fear of what could happen if nothing is done. With the knowledge of several porous borders and the abundance of small arms in the country, it is indeed a crisis if not attended to quickly, and maybe something that could be more devastating than envisaged. So today, the Security Summit planned by the National Assembly, which was rescheduled, held today in Abuja, the nation's capital. Some of the agitations and clamors about the structure of the country came to the fore, and it was interesting that it came from the nation's number 2 man, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Here, what he says we need urgently to curtail the growing security concerns across the country.
State police and other community policing methods are clearly the way to go. Four, that we must intensify existing collaboration with our neighbors in the Chad Basin, especially border communities, to prevent the movement of small arms and in disarming armed pastoralists and other bandits who go through our borders day after day.
The Vice President also preferred other solutions like urgent need for state and community policing to curtail arms proliferation, the need for more police presence in adherence with United Nations standards. That will then mean that we have to triple the numbers of personnel on the ground. He also asked that the nation's numerous borders need attention and more partnerships with other governments within the Lake Chad Basin. Those are some of the propositions by the Vice President. Well, what does this all mean and the implications of all of this? Tonight I have 2 experts on the panel, on the program. A former director with the Department of State Security, DSS, and he's been a regular analyst on the program, Mr. Mike Ejiofor from our Abuja studio. Also sitting beside him is a lawyer and also a regular analyst on the program, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program. Before we look at what may be a legal implication of what the Vice President is proposing tonight, and perhaps some of the urgent need for to look into the security situation of the country, Mr. Ejiofor, what the Vice President said today, what do you make of it? The practicality of it, it looks like a clamor that a lot of Nigerians have had over the years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there wouldn't have been a better time for the Vice President to have made this statement on behalf of government, in view of the fact that we have a lot of security challenges. And besides, I also want to commend the National Assembly for initiating this summit. The Vice President talked in his address. He talked about state police, talked about community policing, talked about funding. These are germane issues that we can use to address the security challenges we are facing. And you can also see that the Senate President in his address also highlighted some of these issues and the need for all the participants to be frank without playing politics about it. I think that's the best way to go, because the primary responsibility of government is to provide security and welfare to the people.
If you can help string together and make a sense of the kind of security challenge that we have on our hands. A few years ago, the Boko Haram issue became a very big menace in the land. A lot of people say it's intelligence related. The kind of herdsmen attacks that we see across some areas in the north central region of the country, kidnapping, are these issues also intelligence-based? And why do you think that these issues have stayed for a long time? Because a lot of people, historically speaking, will tell you that these are not issues that are new to our country.
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. One, you see, there's recession, there's no money in the country. The security services, our security forces, need to update their equipment. And I think I remember last week or somebody in government was acknowledging the fact that actually the agencies are underfunded. And that is not to say that we will not address the challenges. Like I said, it's difficult, and as we're addressing the issue, like you talked about on the herdsmen, which is the greatest challenge we are facing now, and if not properly handled, it might conflagrate and throw this country into a very serious problem. You can see the altercation between the Benue State government and the federal government. It's very, very unfortunate. It must be condemned, and I think the federal government should take adequate measures to address this issue before it gets out of hand.
If you give us a benefit of your experience and your knowledge about security situation and your, the time that you spent in service, tell us, Mr. Ejiofor, do you think some of these guys who carry out some of these attacks in Nigeria are Nigerians? Because there is a narrative that some of them are not even Nigerians. Could that be true?
Well, granted that some of them are not Nigerians, is a failure on our part, because there is no way a foreigner can operate effectively in the country without the local cooperation of the indigenes. So there's no way they can come. So I think it's a failure that government needs to address. We are not even supposed to be saying this, that foreigners are operating in our country. That's daring our territorial integrity. And I think we must live up to the expectation by rising up to the challenges and addressing the issues.
Mr. Daniel Buhala, weigh in, if you may, please. At this point, there are critical issues that the Vice President has raised. One is the issue of meeting up with the United Nations standard of 400 police to one citizen, the standard of the proportion of a police to a citizen, which he says if we must meet that, we might need to triple the number of personnel in the Nigerian police force. Let's start with, legally speaking, in the frame of what the Vice President discussed today at that summit, how practical are those?
Well, thank you for having me. To recruit more police does not require constitutional amendment. It only requires recruitment of police. And I think not long ago, the police said for them to be able to meet the ratio of 1 to 400 by the United Nations, they will need to recruit, I think, about 135,000 or 155,000 police officers. This is not minding the fact that they need to do training, they need funding and all of that. But the angle to which I believe the statement or the position of the government is now becoming stronger and speaking sense is the decision of the government to not only admit, but then acknowledge the need for us to have the creation of state police. No doubt, the idea of state policing is the only way out. Without the creation of state police, this problem, what we are going to be doing, will be just merely treating the surface and may not be able to solve the problem. Because, for example, look at the narrative. The president is the president of the country, but then our law recognizes that there is a governor in a state, and the president's powers are limited, the governor's powers are limited. So that same argument can also be stretched to the policing. When you have the IG of police at the center, there must be police in the state that regulate crime, that fight crime in the state. Now, where you do not have a state police, but orders come from the center, it means the governor is incapacitated in managing security situation in his state, when in actual fact we say the governor is the chief security officer of that state. Secondly, there are increase not just in crime rate, but in the nature of crime. The kind of crime you see in coastal areas are different from the crime you see in the hinterland. You go to places like the Northeast, where insurgency is the issue. It's also different from the crime you see in places like the West. And that is why when you have state police, even the training will be peculiar to the nature of the environment, and then the intelligence gathering will also be very, very solid. Not minding the fact that when you have state police, there will be this jealousy to ensure that crime rate in a state is curbed. But without that, look at the case of Benue and the Inspector General of Police. Very sad situation on the part of the police. They took position even before they went in there. And it is difficult for a state to have confidence in the Inspector General of Police
Mr. Buala,
to handle the
perhaps
situation there.